Hi there, I'm Hainsey, a parkour practitioner and senior instructor with the Australian Parkour Association. Many people don't know what parkour is, while a number of others only see the sensationalised stuff on YouTube and TV. Parkour actually incorporates a huge diversity of training styles. What I want to do is to show you all the different elements of parkour. To define quickly, parkour is a method of physical training that develops one's ability to overcome obstacles, both physical and mental. It involves movement that will help in a reach or escape emergency situation. Underpinning this is a philosophy of altruism and useful strength, longevity, self-improvement and self-understanding. To see a more in-depth explanation of parkour and the definition of parkour, I recommend the Nature of Challenge video, linked here. Now I'll go on to talk about the different aspects of parkour that we train. Briefly, they are technique, strength, conditioning, drops, moving at height, fear, repetition, creativity, and reality simulation. While they are different, they are all held together by the values and philosophy of parkour. Technique is one of the first things we start training when we do parkour. Knowing proper technique is essential for keeping us safe in our movements. It is also a really good way to learn how to control our bodies, and is amazingly fun. Technique training often starts with aiming to control single jumps and stick the landings. As traceurs, that is parkour practitioners, become confident with that, we make the single jumps larger, more technical, or we link them into a circuit. When we link techniques together, we're usually aiming for complete control and no wasted energy. The ultimate test of technique is rails. To move and balance effectively on rails, we need to understand what every part of our body is doing and how it is affecting the rest of our body. We need to be aware if our hips are throwing us off balance, or if our hand is counteracting our momentum in a jump.
It's on the cover of our own magazine. We call it Life in the Arms of a King. And we would talk about everything and anything. And every time that you would sing, my heart would ring, so I had to pick up. I'm glad that it was you on the line, 'cause you got me out of my mind. Come on.
I've seen the highs, I've seen the lows. Going is a question that I'll never know. But what I know is that you'll always be there for me.
That's why I see you in everything.
Good friends they come, good friends they go. It's just the body of this crazy world and how it goes. What doesn't change is that you're always.
Strength is another aspect of parkour that we start doing straight away. Strength training is super useful because it does so many things. Firstly, it builds our muscles so we can do bigger jumps and take bigger drops safely. Secondly, it also builds our tendons and ligaments so we can avoid injuries like ankle sprains or longer term joint misalignments. Thirdly, it is useful for strengthening the mind. If you're doing a set of squats, your mind will say stop well before your body runs out of energy. Constant strength training increases our mental capabilities as well as our physical capabilities. While there are basic exercises like push-ups, sit-ups and squats, what's great about parkour is that we can vary them in so many different ways. We're never bored, and we never have an exercise that is too hard or too easy, because there is always something we can do to change the difficulty. The key thing to remember is that parkour is not just for fit people. Parkour is a way to get fit. Conditioning is similar to strength training and may involve the same movements, but it has a different focus. The aim of conditioning is to put mild stress on the body so it adapts and grows stronger, thus preparing it for the impacts and stresses of parkour movements. This may involve repeating a technique many times over to build up our muscle and muscle memory, or it may involve whole body exercises to build up general body strength. Conditioning also allows us to find weak points in ourselves, physically and mentally. We can then target these areas with strength training. We operate on the principle of turn your weaknesses into your strengths. To condition, we do a lot of quadrupedal movement, which is just moving on all fours. It's not crawling, and in fact we can make it very hard if we just add distance or a set of stairs. The level of difficulty can be changed very easily in parkour. Walls are made of different materials which provide differing levels of grip. Changes in the weather will affect how hard balance, running and landing are. All this diversity makes our training more well-rounded and more effective. Most importantly, we're not repeating movements just to build up our endurance, but to cultivate an enjoyment of effort itself.
Came in to open the spirit and let you see. It's time to let it off without no further seeking. I follow it as I hit it about to begin. Follow the light as I take you on a journey deep in. Side of the light you might just wanna be in. Where you're the light you wanna be in.
Come on, man. Let's do it again. It's like to hear.
Most of the footage you see of parkour is people doing stuff at height or taking crazy drops. This is because that stuff is attention grabbing. However, that stuff is roughly half idiots who have no idea what they're doing, but certainly not parkour, and half experienced traceurs who've been training for many years. Hectic drops have been a part of parkour since its founding in the late 80s, but the drops aren't because we don't care about our bodies. In fact, the opposite. We train drops to prove to ourselves that our strength and conditioning training has been effective. With gradual and consistent strength and conditioning, traceurs have shown that human bodies can do incredible things, including taking huge drops safely. The founder of parkour, David Bell, was taking 10-metre drops onto concrete in the 1990s, and he has had no knee problems or other injuries. In fact, traceurs' bodies are likely to be stronger and healthier than most other people's due to the disciplined nature of our training.
There was no signal from where you were, or failed contact, no life disturbed, hovering above.
The misconceptions around height training are similar to drops. Traceurs care about our bodies. We are not just thrill seekers. We do height training only when we are certain about making the jump. The point of height training is to overcome our fears. Some fears are logical and useful, but others just hold us back from our goals. Much of parkour is about overcoming our fears, and fear of heights is a very common one. By constantly overcoming our fears, we become comfortable challenging ourselves, and as a result, we grow as a person. In general life, the vast majority of people stifle their identities and follow society's norms to avoid looking out of place. Facing and overcoming fears in parkour liberates us from this trend, because we are more interested in our progression than what society thinks of us. The more we face our fears, the more we understand ourselves, and the more we build our identities as someone who is not scared to be ourselves. Traceurs don't do height jumps to get adrenaline. We do height jumps to connect with our true self. We do not encourage beginners to start with heights, because there is no need. There are hundreds of different fears to face at ground level. Height jumps should only be undertaken when you have a good control of your techniques. Heights are not the only type of fear in parkour. Many traceurs are terrified of rails. But seriously, fear of falling, of not being in control, of not being good enough, and of other people's judgments are all fears we encounter in parkour. One by one, traceurs try and overcome these fears to become more independent and more self-assured in our lives. A Melbourne PhD on parkour backs this up, stating, "The powerful sense of satisfaction when fear is overcome and a movement is performed successfully in the context of risk is one of the most sought-after experiences of training." Traceurs overcome fear in many different ways. Some of us use breathing and visualization exercises to calm ourselves down, while others use countdowns and pretend chase situations to psych ourselves up. Some traceurs use logic to talk ourselves into doing a jump, while others need to switch off the voice in our head that says we can't. Most use progressions to test and prove to ourselves that we are comfortable with a technique, while a few tracers use mental exercises to reduce their fear. Interestingly enough, most of these exercises work outside of parkour too. Sweating before a job interview? Nervous on a first date? Scared to make a commitment? Try the exercises I mentioned above. You might be surprised. Repetition is an element of parkour that is practiced by everyone, from absolute beginners to highly experienced tracers. It is a training method that allows us to engage with a specific movement pattern and to focus our attention on our body and how it moves. It is extremely useful because it builds body control and muscle memory, it strengthens and conditions our body and our mind, and it instills in us a commitment to practice. We actually have a saying that is once is never, twice is a fluke, do it 3 times. Repetition also teaches us valuable lessons. An experienced tracer in England decided to do 300 repetitions of a difficult technique in a row. It took him more than 3 hours to complete, but he didn't miss a single jump. The lesson he learned from this was, with enough concentration, enough focus, we can repeat a technique for hundreds of times, for hours, and not make a single mistake. Most of all, repetition is fun. Nothing compares to the joy of landing a rail precision after 20 attempts.
This is a really cool shot.
I just want to do it. I want to do it and know that I have control over it.
Land it. Go slower, bud.
Creativity and play is another element of parkour training. It can be difficult to understand what parkour is if one day I'm out pushing hard on sprints and muscle ups, and the next I'm casually practicing weird flowy movements that have no name. But balance is important in parkour, and we have to balance our hard training with lighter, more fun sessions. Having said that, creativity training is not easy. It's the mark of an accomplished practitioner to make these technical movements seem simple and instinctive. Creativity training allows us to experiment with movements and to really understand why and how they work. This is very helpful for our training, as different movements are more efficient in different environments. This type of training also expands our parkour vision, which is our ability to see the world as potential. Potential for jumps and fun, potential for hard work and conditioning, potential for overcoming fears and personal growth. Reality simulation is one of the least understood parts of parkour. Parkour was founded on a basis of moving from A to B in the most efficient way possible. The reason why we might want to move efficiently is because we might have someone chasing us, or we might be trying to reach someone quickly to help them. This is the basis for all our techniques and our philosophy of training. Pretending we're in a chase situation is extremely important because we face a different type of fear to other training styles. We are stressed, we have very little time to think, which means we need to operate on autopilot and use only very simple techniques. Like drop training, reality simulation proves that our training and techniques are actually effective. While parkour is expressed physically, its true spirit lies in the heart. We've talked about fear a lot. Ultimately, parkour is a way to get rid of the fear of being afraid. Practitioners don't push fear away, rather, they welcome it as a chance to learn and grow. That is the very definition of courage. Society's concept of strength is often simply based on the idea of physical performance. But with a little thought, it becomes clear that when it comes to strength, what predominates is determination, courage, and presence of mind and heart. Through parkour, we learn that it's sometimes an act of courage and integrity to simply admit that we have reached our limits. For me personally, the greatest gift of parkour is the joy of challenge. The fact of having accomplished something in the face of adversity, to have found within my many challenges a source of joy, or simply the satisfaction of a job well done, is a precious experience which we all too often devalue. I welcome the challenges parkour brings.